My name is Ella Simmons. I'm 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I ended a relationship in the middle of dinner without raising my voice once. Not because of a fight, not because of betrayal in the way people expect, but because of one sentence. Maybe you're the sin I need to quit. That was the moment everything became simple. Daniel Carter is 30. We had been together a little over 3 years, and he had been living in my condo for about 8 months when everything finally collapsed. At the beginning, Daniel used to joke that I was his unexpected choice. Not because I was dramatic, because I wasn't. I had one coffee order, one grocery list, one savings plan, a habit of checking reviews before trying new places. My life ran on structure, and I liked it that way. Daniel said it grounded him. Later, I realized what he really meant was, it didn't challenge him. At first, his language was playful. He'd call me his contradiction, his calm in chaos. But Daniel liked big words, dramatic words, words that made ordinary moments feel heavier than they were. A small disagreement became emotional distance. A boundary became rejection. Silence became abandonment. And whenever he wanted to say something cruel without sounding cruel, he wrapped it in something poetic and called it honesty. That was the pattern. When we moved in together, it shifted. Living together before marriage became something he brought up whenever he wanted leverage. If I said I didn't want to rush into an engagement just because his friends were getting married, he'd say maybe we were building something unstable. If I asked him not to disappear for hours after a fight, he'd say maybe our relationship was based on tension, not peace. But only when it benefited him. When it was time to split rent, silence. When he wanted me to cover a weekend trip with his friends, silence. When he bought furniture that cost more than my first laptop because it changed the energy of the room, silence. But when he wanted control, suddenly everything was a moral crisis. I should have left earlier. There were signs. He hated being corrected, even gently. He had a habit of bringing private disagreements into public spaces where he knew I'd stay composed. He liked saying things in front of waiters, friends, strangers. Things designed to make me look cold if I didn't immediately reassure him. And the biggest thing, he was always testing. Not asking. Testing. If I didn't chase him after he walked out, it meant I didn't care. If I didn't read his silence correctly, it meant I wasn't attentive. If I didn't fight hard enough against something he threatened, it meant I was proving his point. For the last 6 months, I felt like I was in a relationship with a man who kept writing exams I never agreed to take. The final one happened on a Saturday night. A small Italian place. Soft lighting. The kind of place Daniel loved because everything looked more expensive than it was. We were halfway through dinner when he set his fork down. That look, calm face, controlled voice, something sharp underneath. I've been thinking about what peace is supposed to feel like. I remember thinking, here we go. I said, okay. He looked at me and said, maybe you're the sin I need to quit. Just like that. No build-up, no conversation, just a line he clearly believed was powerful enough to corner me. I stared at him, not because I was shocked. He had said cruel things before, but because of how clear it felt. Like something inside me had been waiting for him to finally say something honest enough that I wouldn't try to reinterpret it into something softer. So I said, then quit. He blinked, actually blinked. That surprised him more than anger would have. He gave a small, nervous laugh. Ella, don't be dramatic. That almost made me smile. I reached into my bag, pulled out cash for my half, and placed it on the table. You don't get to call me a sin and then ask for dessert. He stood up quickly. I didn't mean it like that. I met his eyes. You meant it exactly the way you said it. And then I walked out. He called before I even reached the parking garage. Then again at the stoplight. By the time I pulled into my building, I had 11 missed calls and 6 messages. Are you seriously doing this? You're embarrassing me. I was trying to be honest. I didn't respond. Because for the first time in months, I didn't feel confused. I felt calm. The condo was mine. The lease, the utilities, everything. Legally simple. Emotionally, even simpler. So I started packing. Not angrily, not recklessly, methodically. His clothes first, shoes, toiletries, desk items from the second bedroom, the framed prints he loved, quotes that looked like expensive sadness. I took my time. No broken items, no missing things, no future excuses. By 10:30 p.m., I had rented a storage unit online. By midnight, everything was either boxed, stacked, or ready to move. I placed an envelope on top. Your things are packed. Larger items are in storage. Access code included. Please do not contact me again. Ella. Then I changed the keypad code. At 12:41 a.m., he came back. With Tara. I saw them on the building camera first. Daniel was already crying before I opened the door. Tara had that look people get when they've only heard one side of a story. I opened the door with the latch still on. Daniel looked at the boxes. What is this? I said, you quitting. Tara stepped forward first, not Daniel. That told me a lot. People bring backup when they think emotion will do what accountability can't. Okay, she said, lifting one hand like she was the reasonable one in the hallway. You've made your point. I looked at her, then at Daniel, whose tears were already changing shape. Less wounded, more angry. No, I said quietly. Daniel made his. He stared at me like he still expected the scene to correct itself, like at any second I would soften, open the door wider, apologize for taking his words seriously. You can't throw away 3 years over one sentence, he said. His voice cracked in exactly the right place. If I had still been the woman I was 6 months earlier, maybe that would have reached me. Maybe I would have heard the grief and ignored the manipulation stitched into it. But I wasn't. I said, you didn't lose me over one sentence. You lost me because you thought it was a reasonable one. He flinched. Tara folded her arms. I was trying to explain how this feels, he said. No, I said, you were trying to wound me into begging. That landed. I saw it in the way his face changed. That tiny, ugly stillness people get when they realize they've been understood more clearly than they wanted. Tara gave a sharp laugh. Wow, so now he's abusive because he was vulnerable? I didn't even look at her right away. I kept my eyes on Daniel. You brought a witness, I said. That means somewhere in you already knew this wouldn't sound good on its own. That was when Sonia opened her door across the hall. Sonia is one of those women who doesn't waste energy pretending not to notice what's in front of her. She manages a building across town and has the exact expression of someone who has watched too many people confuse performance with innocence. She looked at the three of us. Boxes, tears, Tara's outrage, my half-open door. Then she asked, do I need to stay out here for this? I said, I'm okay. Daniel wiped under his eyes and stared at me with that mixture of heartbreak and offense he wore whenever consequences arrived faster than sympathy. You're going to regret this, he said. I handed Tara the envelope with the storage access information inside. Everything's accounted for. Daniel didn't take it. Tara did. Then I closed the door. That was the last conversation we had as a couple. And for about 12 hours, I honestly thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to 3 voicemails from unknown numbers. The first was Daniel crying. The second was Daniel angry. The third was Tara telling me I was punishing a man for being emotionally honest. I blocked all 3. Then came the texts from friends I barely knew well enough to have saved in my phone. Marla, he's spiraling. Please call him. Jenna, you took that way too literally. A man named Drew, whom I had met once at a rooftop barbecue, sent me a message on LinkedIn asking if I was really ending something meaningful over semantics. Semantics. That word shows up when people say exactly what they mean and later decide the consequences were unfair. I replied to no one. By Monday afternoon, Daniel had moved into the next phase. Accidental appearances that were not accidental. Tuesday morning, he was outside my regular coffee shop, sitting alone in sunglasses with his laptop closed, like he had come there specifically to be seen. He looked up the second I reached the corner. I turned around and left. Wednesday evening, he was in the parking lot of my gym, leaning against his car in one of my old hoodies. I kept walking. Thursday, he was at the small bookstore near my condo, standing by the front table with an open book in his hands. He wasn't reading it. He followed me halfway down the sidewalk before I said without turning around, "Don't." His footsteps stopped. That same night, my condo camera sent me an alert while I was still at work. Front door opened. At first I thought maybe it was a glitch. Then I opened the live feed. Daniel. He still had the backup key from before I changed the keypad code. I watched him step into my condo like he belonged there. He stood in the kitchen for a moment, looked around, then moved through the living room slowly, almost thoughtfully, as if he were inspecting what grief had done to the place. He was inside for 7 minutes. 7. Long enough to take 2 of the bags that had already been packed for him. Long enough to check whether I had moved anything. Long enough to leave one of his candles burning on the kitchen island before he walked out. That changed the temperature for me, not because of the candle itself, because it was a message. A small one, a controlled one, exactly the kind he liked best. I can still get in if I want to. I called a locksmith as soon as I got home. New cylinder, rekeyed deadbolt, same evening service. $165. Worth every cent. The next day he texted me from Tara's number. You changed the lock, that's psychotic. I stared at it for a long moment, not because I was hurt, but because I was tired. Tired in that deep, hollow way that comes from realizing someone can violate your boundaries and still believe your response is the real offense. I replied once. You entered my condo after I told you not to contact me. Do not do it again. That was the last direct message he got from me. Around then, work started getting good in a way I badly needed. I was selected to lead a new patient record rollout for 3 regional clinics. More responsibility, more visibility, a real shot at promotion by next quarter if I handled it well. It also meant I had less time to think about Daniel, which helped. I started sleeping better too. That sounds small until you've spent months lying next to someone who turns every disagreement into weather. Silence began to feel medicinal. No loaded sighs. No emotional traps hidden inside harmless questions. No waking up at 2 a.m. because someone wanted reassurance in a tone that made reassurance sound like a confession. I hadn't realized how loud my life had become until it went quiet. Then Friday happened. I stepped off the elevator after work and saw him immediately. Daniel was sitting on the floor outside my door, knees pulled up, wearing my old college hoodie. Mascara smudged grief. Except men don't get mascara in stories like this. So what he had instead was the male version of the same staging. Red eyes, damp lashes, exhaustion arranged just carefully enough to be seen. He looked up at me like he had been waiting for a miracle. Can we please talk like humans? I stayed by the elevator. There are moments when your body understands something before your mind puts language on it. Mine had already decided distance was safer than kindness. I was angry, he said. I was hurt. I didn't mean that you were actually a sin. That's great, I said. I still don't want this. He stood slowly, brushing off his jeans like that made the scene less pathetic. Then his voice changed. Softer, lower, more intimate. The voice he used when he wanted to sound sincere enough that any resistance looked cruel. I just wanted to know you'd fight for me. There it was. The truth, stripped of poetry. I looked at him for a long second. That's not love, I said. That's a trap. His face crumpled. Real tears that time, or close enough that I couldn't tell. But by then it didn't matter. He had cried before. He had weaponized softness before. He had mistaken visible pain for moral innocence too many times for me to keep giving it the benefit of the doubt. He took a step closer. Ella, please, you know me. Yes, I said, that's the problem. Sonia's door opened again. Perfect timing, almost divine. She leaned against her frame and looked from Daniel to me. Do you need me to call someone? Not yet, I said. Daniel stood there for another second, maybe waiting for embarrassment to do what affection no longer could. Maybe waiting for me to fold because being watched had always made me gentler. Not anymore. He looked at Sonia, then back at me, and whatever he saw in my face finally made something sink in. He left. That weekend, my mother called. Daniel had found her on Facebook and sent her a long, carefully wounded message about how I had abandoned him during a moment of emotional clarity. My mother asked what happened. I told her exactly. There was a short silence on the line. Then she said, "He called you a sin?" "Yes." "And he's shocked you left?" "Yes." Another pause. Then, with the clean disgust only a mother can deliver on behalf of her daughter, she said, "Oh, hell no." I leaned back in my kitchen chair and laughed for the first time in days. Not because it was funny, because it was relief. Because for 1 second, the story sounded exactly as absurd outside my own head as it had felt inside it. Then Mom asked whether I needed help paying for anything legal if it came to that. That was when a chill moved through me. Not fear exactly, recognition. Because something in me already knew this wasn't over. Daniel wasn't grieving a relationship. He was reacting to losing control of the script. And men like that rarely leave quietly when the audience stops cooperating. 2 weeks later, Daniel escalated. Not loudly at first. Carefully. The way he always did when he wanted to look like the reasonable one, while shifting the ground underneath you. The first thing was flowers. White lilies. Delivered to my office on a Tuesday morning with a thick ribbon tied too perfectly around the stems. My assistant, Monica, carried them in with one eyebrow slightly raised, already sensing something was off. "There's a card," she said. Of course there was. Even sinners find their way home. No name. Just that line. I stared at it for a few seconds longer than necessary, not because it moved me, but because it confirmed something I had already started to understand. He wasn't trying to apologize. He was trying to reframe. I took a photo of the card, saved it, then handed the flowers back to Monica. "Give them away." She nodded once. "Do you want me to alert security?" "Yes." No hesitation. No second guessing. That was new. The next move came 3 nights later. 1:12 a.m. Unknown number. I'm late and I'm scared. I sat up in bed, phone still in my hand, the message glowing too brightly in the dark. For a split second, instinct kicked in. The reflex to respond, to check, to make sure everything was okay. Then logic followed. We hadn't slept together in over a month before the breakup. Not even close. The timeline didn't make sense, which meant the message wasn't panic. It was strategy. I locked my phone and set it down. Didn't reply. The next morning, Monica stopped by my office door again. "There's a man in the lobby asking for you," she said. "He says he's your boyfriend." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "I don't have a boyfriend," I said. She nodded. "I told him you were in a meeting." He left this. A folded note. "I miss you. I think God is punishing me for letting you walk away. D." That went into the folder too, because by then I had started one. Evidence. Texts, voicemails, screenshots, camera clips, the flower card, now the note. It felt clinical, detached, and that was exactly why it worked, because Daniel's entire approach depended on emotion, on reaction, on getting me to respond inside the story he was writing. The folder took that away. Then he made a mistake. He contacted my mother again. He cried, apparently, said I had abandoned him during a moment of emotional vulnerability, that I had misunderstood something beautiful. My mother listened, then asked one question. "Did you call my daughter a sin at dinner?" He tried to explain. Apparently, he used the word poetry. My mother cut him off. "You don't get to insult someone and then blame them for understanding you." She hung up. When she told me about it later, I didn't laugh this time. I just nodded. Because something had shifted. I had stopped waiting for him to stop. I started preparing for him not to. I booked a consultation with an attorney the next day. $425. Worth it. He sat across from me, flipping through printed screenshots, reading quietly, occasionally making small notes in the margins. When he finished, he leaned back slightly. "You needed a cease and desist yesterday. So we sent one. Formal. Clear. No ambiguity." For 4 days, everything went quiet. No messages. No sightings. No calls from unknown numbers. It almost felt like relief. Almost. Then, on Friday night, something unexpected happened. I met Ethan. It wasn't dramatic. No music. No timing that felt like fate. Just a trivia night I almost didn't go to because I was tired and didn't feel like being around people. Monica had invited me. "He's my cousin's friend," she had said. "You'll like him. He's normal." That word made me pause. Normal. I hadn't realized how much I missed it. Ethan was sitting at the end of the table when I arrived. Denim jacket, quiet posture, the kind of presence that doesn't try to fill a room but somehow steadies it anyway. He looked up when I sat down. "Hi," he said. "I'm Ethan." No performance. No layered meaning. Just that. "Ella," I said. The night moved easily after that. Questions that were actually questions. Answers that didn't feel like tests. No hidden edges. We talked about work, travel, books neither of us had finished. Nothing heavy. And somehow that made it feel heavier in the best way. Real. Our first date a few days later was tacos and a walk. No pressure. No invisible scoreboard. At one point, I told him part of the truth. Not everything. Just enough. He listened, then said, "As long as the chaos is behind you and not still knocking on your door, I'm fine." I smiled. That's fair. For a moment, I believed it. Then 2 Fridays later, reality caught up. Ethan and I were at a wine bar downtown. Low lighting, soft music, the kind of place where conversations stay close to the table. I saw Daniel the second he walked in, and then I saw what he was wearing. The same jacket I had helped him pick out last winter. That detail irritated me more than it should have. Not because I wanted the jacket, because it felt intentional, deliberate. He saw me. Then he saw Ethan, and something in his face shifted. Not sadness, not shock. Humiliation folding into anger. He walked over. Of course he did. "So this is what you do," he said, voice loud enough to pull attention. "Replace me and pretend you're healed." I stood up slowly. "Leave." Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. That alone told me more about him than anything he could have said. Daniel laughed. That sharp, hollow sound I recognized too well. You always needed an audience to feel right. Then he reached toward the table and knocked Ethan's wine. Hard. It spilled across Ethan's lap, onto the floor, into the space between us, like a line being crossed in real time. Everything after that moved fast. Staff, manager, security. Daniel tried to say it was an accident. No one believed him. The bartender hadn't missed the motion. The camera above the bar definitely hadn't. Ethan stood up calmly, napkin in hand, more composed than anyone had a right to be in that moment. And somehow that made Daniel look worse, like chaos standing next to control. The police arrived faster than Daniel expected. He was given a criminal trespass warning on the spot. He argued. Of course he did. But there's a limit to how far words can stretch when there are cameras involved. The next morning, I filed a report. Then I started paperwork for a protective order. And somehow, even then, he found a way to be offended. The voicemail came from another unknown number. "You're really going to make me look crazy over one mistake?" I saved it, added it to the folder, because by then I understood something clearly. This wasn't about fixing anything. It was about documenting everything. And Daniel had just handed me exactly what I needed. Court was 3 weeks later. By then, my evidence folder wasn't just a folder anymore. It was structured, labeled, chronological, the original breakup, unknown number messages, camera footage from my condo hallway, locksmith receipt, the flower card, the fake pregnancy text, the note from my office lobby, the cease and desist, the bar incident report, police documentation, voicemail transcripts, every piece of it quiet, factual, undeniable. Daniel showed up in a pale blue button-down, sleeves neatly rolled, hair pulled back like he had rehearsed the version of himself he wanted the room to believe. Controlled, reflective, misunderstood. For a second, just one, I saw the man I had spent 3 years trying to understand. The one who believed that if he said things beautifully enough, people would stop looking at what he was actually doing. His attorney spoke first. She described him as overwhelmed, emotional, someone who had reacted poorly to the sudden end of a serious relationship. A few regrettable attempts at closure, she said. A few. I didn't react. My attorney didn't either. He just stood, walked to the table, and began laying things out, one by one. No emotion, no commentary, just sequence. Then he said, "We'd like to play a voicemail." The room shifted slightly. Not visibly, but you could feel it, because audio does something text can't. It removes interpretation. The recording played. Daniel's voice filled the courtroom. "You're really going to make me look crazy over one mistake? I can see your balcony light on. I know you're home." There was a pause. Not long. Just enough. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Play that again." My attorney did. The same line. Same tone. Same certainty. "I can see your balcony light on. I know you're home." When it ended, the room didn't move. The judge looked at Daniel. Not unkindly, but clearly. "Mr. Carter," she said, "repeated unwanted contact is not closure, it is harassment." That sentence didn't sound loud, but it landed like something final. Daniel's composure cracked, not dramatically, not in a way that would draw sympathy, but in a small, telling way. His shoulders shifted. His jaw tightened. The version of himself he had practiced didn't quite hold under the weight of something that simple. His attorney tried to recover. She argued intent. She said he had never meant harm, only reconciliation. That he had been emotional. That he had loved me. The judge didn't interrupt her. She let her finish. Then she said, "Love does not require surveillance. Silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't invite response." The protective order was granted. 1 year. No contact. No workplace visits. No third-party communication through friends or family. Stay away from my home, my office, my routines. Daniel nodded when the terms were read. But it didn't look like agreement. It looked like recognition. Like someone realizing the story they had been telling no longer had any control over how it would end. When it was over, I stepped out into the hallway and felt something unfamiliar. Not relief. Not victory. Just stillness. Daniel didn't follow. His attorney spoke quietly to him near the door. And then someone else approached me. His mother. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally. The kind of tired that comes from holding onto a version of someone for too long and finally having to let it go. "I'm sorry," she said. No defense. No explanation. Just that. I nodded. "I hope he gets help." And I meant it. Because by then, I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. There's a difference. The next few months were quiet. Good quiet. The kind that lets your body remember what normal feels like. Work stabilized. Then improved. I got the promotion. The rollout succeeded. My days became full in a way that didn't drain me. Ethan stayed. Not loudly. Not intensely. Just consistently. We took things slowly. No tests. No emotional riddles hidden inside simple conversations. If something bothered him, he said it. If something bothered me, I said it. And that was enough. Sonia still asks for updates whenever she sees me in the hallway. But now it's different. Less concern. More satisfaction. Like someone who trusted their instincts early and didn't need the ending to prove them right. My mother still calls Daniel that poetry man, which is unfair, but also not entirely wrong. And the biggest thing, my condo feels like mine again. No staged silences. No loaded questions. No invisible tension sitting across the table waiting to be named. No wondering whether the next sentence is going to be a confession, an accusation, or a trap wrapped in something that sounds beautiful. Just space. Just quiet. Just mine. That's the part people don't talk about enough. Leaving doesn't always feel like loss. Sometimes it feels like accuracy. Like finally aligning your life with what you already knew but hadn't admitted. Daniel used big words because he thought they could hide small motives. He called me a sin because it sounded more meaningful than what he really meant, which was this: I want you to feel guilty until you choose me harder. But love isn't supposed to feel like a courtroom where one person keeps changing the charges. It isn't supposed to sound like a threat disguised as vulnerability. And if someone needs to wound you just to see if you'll stay, then leaving isn't failure. It's the first honest thing that happened.